You've seen the image, the suits, the confidence, the men who moved through the streets without fear. But that version isn't the truth. Because the real Peaky Blinders weren't powerful. They weren't untouchable. They were young men, growing up in the back streets of Birmingham in the late 1800s, fighting for money, for status, for survival.
Look what I got here. Bloody hell, is that real? Let me see that. And we take what side? Peaky Blinders!
The real Peaky Blinders weren't powerful, and they weren't organised. They were poor, often unemployed, and scraping by however they could. Petty crime became income, quick, risky, and short-lived. And whatever money came in was just as quickly wasted. Nights like these, filled with drink, noise, and reckless behaviour, were common. Not a criminal empire, just a group of lads trying to be something in a world that gave them very little. The name Peaky Blinders likely came from their flat caps and local slang, blinder meaning someone sharp, well-dressed, and striking. Not from razor blades, as legend later claimed. Most were known more to the police than they ever were to history, and like many others, they faded just as quickly as they appeared. In October 1904, Harry Fowles, known as Baby-Faced Harry, and Ernest Haynes stole a bicycle from the streets of Birmingham. Just petty, opportunistic theft. And they didn't get far. Far from the organised gang in the TV show, these were the real Peaky Blinders. Stephen McNichol took a different route. He broke into a draper's shop, smashing the window and grabbing what he could. Cloth, fabric, whatever was within reach. But like the others, it was petty theft, and he was caught. He was arrested not long after.
Fuck you, cozzers!
The real Peaky Blinders were just poor young men chasing a meal and status with petty crime. Thomas Gilbert, known as Kevin Mooney and by many aliases, was likely the leader of the group.
Hello, Thomas. What's this then? To the nick with you, mate.
Fuck you, pigs!
The real Peaky Blinders weren't the organised gang you probably thought. They weren't living the life people imagine. Not power, not comfort. This was it. Cramped rooms, bodies packed together, thin mattresses laid wall to wall, air thick, heavy, never truly quiet. Food was simple, if it came at all. A bit of bread, a weak meal, just enough to keep going. Every day was the same. Work when you could find it, and when you couldn't, you survived another way. There was no ladder to climb, no way out, no real chance to change your life. So you adapted. You stuck with the only people who understood it. Men living the same reality, the same pressure, the same hunger. And in that world, loyalty meant protection, and crime meant opportunity. Not because they wanted it, but because sometimes it was the only way to eat or to have something better than slum life. Harry Fowles, Ernest Haynes, Stephen McNichol, and Thomas Gilbert were Peaky Blinders that we have records of, even if it was only petty crimes they committed. Fights like these weren't rare. Quick bursts of violence over coins, territory, or reputation. This was how they tried to get ahead. Not organised crime, not power, just young men chasing status however they could, in streets that offered few real opportunities. The money was small. The wins didn't last. Most of what they earned was spent as quickly as it came. And by the early 1900s, this way of life was already fading. These street gangs were unstructured, replaceable, and soon something more organised would take their place. Enter Billy Kimber. As the old street gangs faded, men like Kimber were building something different, structured, organised, and far more profitable. His gang, the Birmingham Boys, moved beyond backstreets and bar fights into racecourses, betting rings, and real money. They controlled the pitches, ran the bookmakers, and enforced their presence with quiet authority. This wasn't chaos anymore, it was control. Money flowed, steadily, predictably, not in scraps, but in systems. And for groups like the Peaky Blinders, there was no place left. They didn't get beaten, they were simply outgrown. No one really knows what became of most of the men who made up the Peaky Blinders. They didn't rise to power, they didn't leave empires behind. They simply faded, as something more organised took their place. Most left little behind, just brief mentions in police records, and then nothing. And yet, despite it all, for a group known mostly for petty crime, they've left a mark on history that far outlived them.